Yahweh restricts, constrains, and limits what HaSatan can do. So I'm not saying there's not a being. We talked about that even in the Hebrew when we got to Job. It starts to refer to an individual called HaSatan. So it's used more as a title or proper noun, that kind of thing, as opposed to just a common noun. So we're going to see that throughout the New Testament as well. You need to be encouraged to let go of the Christian teaching that somehow this evil, horrible, despicable being is just going to do whatever it wants to you and anybody it wants to. That's not Scripture. Scripture shows that he is limited and restricted and constrained. Can we understand that? Please embrace that. We're going to get back here now to verse 27, where he says, and if I do this, who do your sons do it is because they shall be your judges. What is this they shall be your judges thing? What does that mean, because they shall be your judges? So because of this, they shall be your judges refers to the sons who are doing the casting out as being used as witnesses against you. So you say I'm doing it this way, well then that means they're doing it this way. So if they're doing it the right way, why am I not doing it the right way? In other words, that's going to be a witness against you. So it's not that they're going to judge, like sit in the judgment seat. It's going to bring judgment on you because they are now witnesses against you. Does that make sense? Okay, because that verse has been a little bit confusing for people, okay, as to who's doing what here. If I, by Beelzebul, do cast out demons, by whom do your sons cast them out? Because of this, they shall be your judges. In other words, that's going to be used in judgment. You're accusing me? Well, how are they doing it? We've all heard phrases like being blinded by emotion, right? You're blinded by your hate, you're blinded by your lust, you're blinded by, because what it simply means is because you're so in that one space, you can't see straight. You only see that. So he's saying is, in order to have this happen, nobody can go in there and do anything to you, is what he's saying, unless you're blind. And you're blinded by something. Now, the outside one is not blinding you. He can bind you up by encouraging you to get just wrapped up in your emotions. You're so tied up in the knots with that emotion, you don't pay attention to the rest of your life going into, just going out in crazy land. The whole thing's just going into chaos and confusion, but you're just so focused on this one thing that you can't let go of it. You're still living in the past. You're still struggling with now. You got to let all that stuff go. How do I do that? You just let it go. How do I do that? You just let it go. So verse 3, he spoke to them much in parables, saying, he spoke to them much in parables. Yahweh says the same thing, that he always spoke to them in parables in the Old Testament. What should that tell you? It should tell you that you should take everything literally and none of it literally. Parables are meant to teach you a point, to teach you a lesson, to give you a message. That doesn't mean the stuff didn't happen. It's just saying that what happened is not the point. The message is the point, okay? What happened is not the point. So this parable is going to tell you about a story, and he's telling you up front, this didn't really happen. I'm just giving you a point, right? We could read about the garden in Genesis. We could read about the flood. Those things happened, but they're not the point. There are points from those things, right? We could read about Egypt and the Exodus. That happened. It's not the point. And in them, verse 14, the prophecy of Yeshayahu, Isaiah says, is completely filled, which says, hearing you shall hear and by no means understand, and seeing you shall see and by no means perceive. You see the difference? You can hear, but you don't understand. Or you can see, but you don't get it. You don't perceive what you're supposed to see out of it. Because perception is different than just seeing it. You know what, it's funny, I've done that with a professional who understood art, and I went to an art museum with her, and I'm looking at something and I saw it, but I had no perception of what I was looking at. And when she explained it to me, I was like, oh, it's like a parable. It needed explanation. I said, what am I looking at? And then when she explained all, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome, right? But it needed somebody to teach it, so we could go along with the Catholic churches they're the ones who gave you this evil devil, red horns, and the whole 9 yards, okay? So anybody in any other denominational, Protestant, whatever, understand your belief in the devil came from them. Actually, it came from a guy named Dante, who wrote the book, The Inferno. It didn't even come from the church. They just thought they found a gold mine when he wrote the book and said, oh, this is good. We're going to use this to scare everybody. And that was fiction. It wasn't real. It wasn't scripture. But nobody thought that way about the Satan, devil, whatever, until he wrote that book. It was not something taught in churches or anything. And the church adapted as a way, because the church back then, I guess a lot of you don't understand this, Christianity was as evil, as horrible as you would think of radical Islam. Worse, they were burning people at stakes in public and torturing and everything else to get you to confess or believe or whatever it was. They were worse than anything you can imagine. I am not saying that way today. I'm just saying they were that. You then hear the parable of the sower. Now he's going to say, I'm now going to explain it to you because you would never understand it if I didn't explain it to you. And this is an argument. Yes, I'm making an argument for me. I mean, I don't care if nobody listens. I'm just telling you why there should be a me. In other words, a person teaching you. Because the vast majority of people out there, and we counsel a lot of people where the husband or the wife is like, oh, but this person, especially husbands, oh, they don't want to come under a teacher. I don't need a teacher. A lot of wives have told us, my husband said, I don't need a teacher. Everybody needs a teacher. That's what he just said. He says, you wouldn't understand this, even with the eyes to see and ears to hear and the ruach and everything else, unless I explain it to you. Ooh, does everybody remember at the end, after Yeshua has been crucified and resurrected, and he's interacting with his disciples, that they have already received the ruach. Well, actually, I guess it's before Acts 2, but they've been trained by him. He still has to open up their minds so they understand the things that they didn't understand, that he still hadn't finished teaching them. This is important for all of you from a psycho-emotional point of view. Listen to how, this is a parable, remember. Yet he has no root in himself, but is short-lived when perceived pressure. Doesn't mean it was real. It's real or perceived, okay? Could be both, either or real or perceived persecution arises because of the word. Now, why would there be persecution because of the word unless you were doing it? So this person tried to start doing it, or at least told everybody how excited he was about it, and then was attacked, pressured, or whatever about it, and he stumbled, or she stumbled, either way, right? But it doesn't mean that it was actual real pressure or persecution, but it felt to you like it was. You felt judged, persecuted, attacked. You felt pressure. Because a lot of you in places right now that you don't like. You don't like your weight, you don't like your finances, you don't like your health, you don't like something, but you're still okay with it. When you don't like it enough, you won't be okay with it. Remember, there's a difference. You can be in a place that you don't like, but when it push comes to shove, I'm okay. It's okay. I'm tolerating it. You will always fall down eventually to your level of toleration. You don't want to be where you are? Raise that level so that you no longer tolerate where you are. On a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10, let's say you're at a 3, you're going to stay at the 3 until the level of toleration is at least a 5. I can't tolerate a 3. I've got to be at least at a 5, so I have to do something. As long as you tolerate it, you're going to stay at a 3. Whatever it is. It could be your emotions, it could be your health, it could be your wealth, it could be anything. And it bears fruit. And it yields some 100, some 60, some 30. Now, some of the people are thinking, well, why do some get 60 and some get 100, some 30? Well, it depends on what you did with it. Because some of you will do just a little bit. Some of you will do everything you can. So it's all about the effort, okay? You give maximum effort, you may get the 100. You give minimum effort, at least you gave some effort, maybe you get 30, maybe you get 10. At least you put an effort in. So when you want to know the difference between the 10, the 30, the 60, the 100, whatever, I know it doesn't say the 10 here, but you've seen those kind of examples before. Well, what kind of effort you putting in? How much are you guarding? How much are you remembering? It says remember to keep, remember to do, or guard to do, cling, cleave, and hold fast to. How much effort? I know you weren't sold this. All you people listening who are still Christian in your mindsets, you were told you didn't have to put in effort. Oh, works is bad. Effort, no. Effort is everything.